Is all of this redundant, though? Will big tech decide the US election? There's been a lot of criticism directed at the tech giants' role in this presidential campaign. Fake news, tensions and voter suppression is part of this targeted political interference that may influence the outcome of this election more than any other. There's a lot at stake here. Let's go to former US resident and managing director of tech incubator firm Recastled, Kosha Gada. Kosha, thank you very much for your time.
Chris, good to be with you again.
We saw a little bit of this, the power of big tech and the impact of social media in 2016, but it's gone a step further now. How would you describe the impact and the power that they have?
Look, I think, this idea of information gatekeeping, persuasion, narrative building goes back to the beginning of human history. But it's always typically been something that's done by state actors. In modern times in free societies, a free press has been an antidote to that. And there have been some great journalistic moments of where that's happened. With big tech coming along, it's sort of, if you follow the natural curve of any industry, when they came in, they disrupted what was often in many ways a cartel of many industries, whether it's the music industry, books, media, and that information flow. And there's been great benefits, I think, to voters that have come from that, where you can share ideas and independent citizen bloggers and journalists can get their things out there, their thoughts and ideas out there. But there comes a time where when that concentration curve gets to a level that it has, where these 4 or 5 companies have such a consolidation of power, they absolutely do become even bigger gatekeepers than the sectors that they disrupted before. And they can shape the narrative and control what information people see. How much that ultimately matters, though, I think remains to be seen, because they're also a vehicle for getting information out in a way that was not possible.
Yeah. Google has been slammed with an antitrust case. Now, this is for monopolising their search engine. Will authorities go after the others?
Potentially. So Google, the DOJ deemed that it was probably the easiest, and even then this has been an 18-month case in the making, but it was probably the easiest company to go after legally based on the antitrust laws that are on the books right now in America before any other reform would come in. And there are reasons for that around how much market share they own of search advertising in particular, which is just now 70% of all advertising basically flows through them. It would be a little bit tougher with Amazon and Facebook potentially, but depending on how this case goes, it would set a precedent that I think would open up different exposure points for the other ones as well. This was just deemed the lowest hanging fruit for them.
Yeah.
But we're a long way from seeing that happen.
How does voter suppression work online?
I think, if I give you an analogy of a commercial world, we'd call it recall influence. So the more that you see an ad or a story in the commercial world, there is evidence that you're more likely to buy that product if you're walking through the supermarket, if you will. So the same thing flows here, that if there's a greater concentration of ads or stories of a particular nature running, that might be a little bit more top of mind for the voter and driving turnout that way. Conversely, if there's suppression of information that would lead to turnout or lead to the motivations that makes the U.S. voter want to get up and go vote, then it could turn in that way as well. But I don't think that in this election in particular, it's probably going to have enough of an impact at the end of the day, but it definitely is growing into a very scary territory, and that's why they're all talking about it with Section 230 and this antitrust ruling.
Donald Trump overuses the word or the phrase fake news, but when you think about the tactics going on with some of those big tech giants who do have a narrative, do have an emotional tie to who wins the election, it is fake news because they're spinning or they're re-engaging particular lines of argument and a particular line of the election.
Mm-hmm. Donald Trump, love him or hate him, one thing he has always been very good at is encapsulating concepts into very simple things that travel well into the media, even through all the gatekeepers. And I think, fake news is a great example of that. 2 words, everybody gets it, what it means. And, to a higher information voter who is aware of stories out there, and then they see the filter applied to them or these extra barriers applied to them when they're surfing, their social media feeds, kind of gets it. And there is truth to that, both with big tech, but also with traditional media. I think, that theme has come out in terms of the types of narratives that turn up on the front page of different newspapers, versus what they choose not to cover.
Yeah, there's an election going on the streets, there's an election going on in people's minds, and there's one going on in terms of technology as well. You've got to keep track of all three. Thank you so much for your time, Kosha.
Thank you so much.